Well, it's been a particularly busy weekend for news, not just surrounding the events in London and Ukraine. Joining me now to get across it all is New South Wales Liberal Senator Holly Hughes, who's in Canberra, former Labor MP Michael Danby, who's a long way away in Jaffa, Israel, and lawyer and commentator Caroline Di Russo, who joins me right in the studio. Welcome, one and all.
How you going, Chris?
Hi. Nice to see you guys.
Good to have you here. All right, plenty to get stuck into. Over the past few days, many royal commentators have been saying about how weak the Commonwealth of Nations has become in recent years. And now that the Queen has passed, their argument is it seems to be a universal feeling that many of the 14 remaining nations will now seek independence from the British monarchy under King Charles. What do you think, Carolyn? We keep talking about what goes on now, and I guess this is all dependent, or very much dependent, on how Charles looks and behaves and acts through this period, especially this early stage.
Absolutely. And look, there was so much goodwill with the Queen, and I suppose she held it together for such a long time. But I really think you're right. I think it's a real let's wait and see kind of exercise. Let's see what Charles does. And like with anything, I don't think we should be banging nails into the coffin of the Commonwealth just yet, because I think there's a bit to run on this.
Holly, what's your thoughts on the family if you've only got a handful of nations in a Commonwealth? Is that the end of the monarchy?
No, and I think it's interesting that there are countries seeking to join the Commonwealth as well at the moment. So whilst there are some countries that are considering leaving, there are countries looking to become a part of the Commonwealth. And I think as we look around the world at the moment, particularly the relationship between China and Russia, there are some smaller nations that I think are looking to find partners to be part of something bigger than themselves, to ensure that they can maintain their own sovereignty, but also have additional security through these sorts of partnerships, plus work together, whether it's through trade or whether it's supporting other issues of interest. And this is where Charles can potentially lead and take more of a role with areas that are of interest to him. I think Caro is right. It's way too early to start saying that this will be the end of the Commonwealth or in any way the decline of the monarchy. I think some people are trying to take that opportunity. I think it's a little bit distasteful at the moment, but there's a very, very long way to run on this.
Very true. Michael, I'm interested where you are in Israel. How have locals reacted to the death of Queen Elizabeth?
Well, it's a former colony of the British Empire, so there's mixed feelings. But the coverage shows that Albo's right. We've got to leave this for 3 years. It's too early to tell. When we look sadly to our American friends, the division at the top of the American hierarchy shows that sometimes it's probably good to have a head of state who's more neutral and more respected. There's going to be 200 world leaders there in London. It doesn't seem the affection from the rest of the world for the British monarchy's waned.
No, that's very true. That's a very good point. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been snubbed from a royal event days out from the Queen's funeral. Palace officials have rescinded Harry and Meghan's invitation to tonight's state reception for 500 dignitaries, saying it's an event for working royals only. I think it's a fair call. It is an event for working royals only, Caroline.
And look, when they decided that they didn't want to be senior royals, you know what? They wanted their privacy and they wanted their independence and they wanted all those sorts of things. Well, you know, there are consequences. And there's been a lot of having cake and eating it as well. And I understand that there's been a dispensation for Harry to be able to wear his military uniform, which is fair enough because he did.
You can't take his war service away from him.
Correct. And then that there was more than just an honorary position. So I can live with that. But, you know, we always hear these bits and pieces of sniping, them not getting exactly kind of what they want. Well, you didn't want the duty, you didn't want the responsibility. Well, you don't get all the other stuff that goes with it.
Exactly. Holly, the word is that they are baffled by this. They should not be baffled. They've put themselves in this situation. It might be awkward for some, but you make your bed, you lie in it.
Well, they wanted a more private life. They no longer wanted to be part of the royal family in the sense that they were. They moved themselves across to the US. They've taken every opportunity they can to take a swipe at not only the Queen, but the entire monarchy and the royal family and the role that it plays. I'm surprised they've got as many invites as they have. They wanted a lower profile. They didn't want this sort of life for their children. They seem upset that their children might not get the HRH. It seems a bit strange to me. They want a lower profile, but they want the HRH. I'm sick of both of them. I sort of long for the day where I hope Harry rolls over one day, takes one look and thinks, what have I done? And comes to his senses and packs up and moves back across the pond. I think he's made an awful error. And I think she's had a terrible influence over him, and she's just a horrible human. It's absolutely disgraceful. And I don't know what's happening with the book that he's done. Her podcasts, apparently they're going through them now, trying to take out parts where she said not particularly kind things about the Queen. It's just, they're awful, revolting people. And I think absolutely they shouldn't be invited to this, and I hope they're not invited to a lot of other things.
Let's move away from Harry and Meghan. Richard Marles says the strengthening of ties between China and Russia means Australia needs to build the most capable and potent defence force possible. The acting PM said the alliance between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin added to the landscape of strategic complexity facing Australia. Meanwhile, the Pope Francis wanted to get and meet the Chinese president. They found themselves in the same city a couple of days ago, but he requested a meeting and it was denied. Xi Jinping snubbed the Pope. Can you believe who snubs the Pope, Michael Danby?
Well, Catholics who compromise with communists are not rewarded. He's allowed the Communist Party to appoint Chinese bishops, and it just shows you that kind of appeasement strategy never works. The really big surprise in the Xi-Putin summit was Xi privately criticised Putin's war in Ukraine,
Yes.
and Modi came out openly against it. So Russia's lost on the battlefield in Kharkiv, and it's lost diplomatically, internationally, even amongst its friends.
Yeah, this so-called strong partnership between Russia and China, I see the wheels coming off this thing because of what was said. And as Michael Danby says, asking serious questions about where you're up to with this war doesn't sound like you're too pally-wally.
No, but it's a very convenient marriage. It's a very convenient marriage. And for example, the Chinese have been receiving pretty cheap oil and gas, which they've been taking a clip off and then sending it back onto the international market. So it's worked for both of them to a point. But what has happened in relation to this dispute in the last few weeks has raised a lot of eyebrows internationally, and even by China and India, who have, for the most part so far, not really criticised the way that Russia's gone about this war. So the fact that they're criticising it now, look, it's a little bit after the fact. We all knew it was going to get there. I mean, they weren't going to sit in a room together, were they, and go, well, we do genocide better than you,
yes,
do we?
exactly
So that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen. But I think it's now got to the point where we are starting to see what is actually occurring. And when it starts to put off your allies or your closer kind of friends in the world, then it is actually really quite off.
Yep. Putin, the pariah. I want to go closer to home now. Crossbench MPs have declared there are still major sticking points with the federal government's proposal for a national corruption watchdog. There are concerns that Labor's Integrity Commission will not be broad enough to go after corrupt union officials, and they're mentioning the fact that business people who seek influence in the government should be in the target of the Commission. There are concerns as well over a lack of protection for whistleblowers, which is understandable, and concerns over funding. Holly, the more we get into this process, the harder it looks, and the wider this commission, the number of tentacles this commission will end up having, it'll be a department bigger than the health department.
Ministry of Truth.
The concerns I've always had that you're going to have some sort of star chamber that's going to be used for a political tool. These sort of things are very, very problematic. If we know the time delays that are currently occurring in New South Wales with ICAC, people are accused, they go through hearings, and then sometimes it's up to 8 years later they're finally cleared with this, hanging over their heads, careers effectively ruined, for substantial periods of time. I was looking at some of the concerns that were being raised today about an extension of powers that these independents are looking for. I mean, do we not have a justice system anymore? Do we not have a court system? I mean, is that what they're trying to replace? I'm not actually sure what their end goal is here, because it really does seem to me like they're looking to replace what would be ultimately something that should go through a court system. And I realise that these commissions quite often make recommendations, but more often not they don't. So what are they trying to achieve here?
See, there's a difference between one form of integrity and another form of integrity, Michael Danby. You can mismanage a portfolio and you can be criminally liable for the decisions you make. They are two major different things. Don't we want an integrity commission to go after criminals? We don't want an integrity commission to start, booking and dragging business people and unionists into this thing, do we?
We don't. Well, that's what we have Parliament for. If people make wrong political decisions, it's called an elected Parliament. I mean, here we've got some Teals who don't seem to know what's going on. They don't seem to see the risks that ICAC have made in New South Wales in convicting innocent people and leaving people out on a limb. I think average Australians are more interested in cost of living, energy security and belligerent Beijing. And I'm not going to listen to, and I'm sure most people aren't going to listen to independents who, didn't know that Parliament sat for 22 weeks of the year in the case of Kooyong Ryan and Zoe Daniel, who just had a private meeting with the Chinese ambassador. I mean, who was there? Why didn't she take someone from DFAT? I really don't trust these people's judgments.
It's very
well,
true.
And to Michael's point, Chris, we've just had one Teal, in Sophie Scomps, who had a financial interest in Tesla, whilst purporting and supporting and pushing for a reduction in taxes around electric vehicles. So is that integrity? I mean, that's setting yourself up to make financial gain.
She needs this whole weekend to think about what to do with those shares, apparently. She should have thought about that 6 months ago.
Is that corruption?
Yes,
is that integrity? Is that corruption?
Good point.
This is the thing. These are the people pushing for this.
Conservative, Holly. Only if you're a conservative.
I know.
Otherwise,
if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any.
Good to get your input on all of that. I've got one more for you, Caroline, because this is a classic case of cyclist sexism. The French Cycling Federation sent a squad to the World Championships in Australia, which begin in Wollongong today, but they put their male riders in business class and the female riders in cattle class in economy. That's a good decision, isn't it?
That's a horrific decision. Now, look, the justification has been, the men are the world champions.
Yeah,
and
they're the VIP riders, come on.
So it's totally fine. This is not okay. This is not okay. And funnily enough, we see this still going on in business. And I have personally witnessed a circumstance where senior counsel flew in business class and the instructing solicitor from the client, who was female, flew in economy. Now, in my view, that is totally unacceptable. I don't tolerate it in the business world, and they shouldn't tolerate it in the sporting world. How are they going to be or become or have any chance of becoming world champions if you're going to stick them in the back and they're not going to get proper rest and, fed and watered and all those sorts of things? I think it's appalling.
I wonder whether there's something French about this, Holly.
Well, it's just, honestly, if I was one of the female riders, I wouldn't be very happy about this at all. I just think it's absolutely pathetic. But, I saw that justification as well. And, maybe it is just a little bit French. But more to the point, Smithy, have you calmed down after last night's win?
No, look, I'm still high as a kite after the South Sydney and the Swans win. Two fabulous results in the space of about an hour and a half. Loved it enormously. Michael Danby, Holly Hughes, Carolyn DeRusso, thank you very much for your time.
Anytime.